loans culture has grown considerably in recent times. Like any growing industry, loans industry has healthy competition. This competition has furthered the cause of finding cheap loans in UK. Cheap loans are not offered on platter. There are tricks to the trade of finding cheap loans. Though borrowing money is not always an easy decision, but there are times when loans are a necessity. Cheap loans are provided for every circumstance and reason: personal loans, secured loans, unsecured loans, mortgage, car loans. When looking for cheap loans, pay attention on various aspects of loans: interest rates, loan term, monthly payments are all instrumental. Interest rates are an obvious way to start your cheap loan search. Find out the lowest interest rates that are offered for your particular loan. Cheap loans are not the first loan you stumbled upon while searching for loans or the first loan that is offered to you. There is always the scope for finding a cheaper loan than the one you found in loans market. You will have to research for finding cheap loans. This may not be your favorite job, but will be certainly active in locating cheap loans. For cheap loans, you will have to go to various lenders and ask for quotes. Quotes give an idea of the loan cost to the borrower. After taking quotes, compare the loan quotes to settle on cheap loans. Online, the chances of finding cheap loans are doubled. The terms and conditions for cheap loans are quite flexible. This has led to those with imperfect credit also qualifying for cheap loans. In fact, a separate category of bad credit loan ensures that cheap loans are a viable possibility for every borrower. Getting cheap loans also depend on collateral and equity. Secured loan will always be a cheaper option than unsecured loans. Equity will sanction the amount you can borrow. If you have ample equity, then you can qualify for larger amounts at cheap interest rates. Your employment record will also affect your chances of finding cheap loans. A borrower can qualify for cheap loans if he or she has a stable income with a good employment record. You can find cheap loans for bad credit history, but a good credit score is integral in finding cheap loans. Every lender will be looking at credit score before extending cheap loans. A good credit score will make you a primary contender for cheap loans. If you want to borrow large amounts, then mortgage is the best and cheapest loans option. Mortgage will be available at the lowest interest rates and terms at all the leading finance companies. It is a cheap way of borrowing money, and considerable types of mortgages exist, keeping in mind the requirements of borrowers. If you are having more than 2 unpaid debts, then debt consolidation is a cheap loans option. Debt consolidation loans are a cheap way of uniting unpaid debt at low interest rates and low monthly payments. It is a cheap way of becoming debt-free. Student loan is an extremely cheap way of paying for college education. All students are eligible to apply for student loans, and it is in fact the cheapest loan in the market. The interest rate for student loan is fixed. But you obviously have to go to a university for it, and there is a limit to how much you can borrow. Another way of procuring cheap loan is shortening the loan term. Shorter the loan term is, the lesser will be what you pay as interest rate, and it will be proved cheaper to your pocket. A shorter loan term will be less expensive, and it is always such a pleasure to pay the loan in shorter time span. There is no single cheap loan for everyone. In fact, cheap loans are in accordance to your financial condition. If you are looking for cheap loans, then you can get extensive information on the net. Read it all, explore your options, and then settle on cheap loans. Cheap loan is all about finding a loan and then finding another one to beat that loan.